I'm Paul from VRP Rocks, and I'm delighted to be bringing you another My Five favorite. And I'm delighted because I love hearing from the artists themselves, giving their personal reasons and choices for their five favorite songs, albums, whatever it is that they've played on. And today's guest is the wonderful drummer, legendary drummer. Over 60 years he's been in the business. He's played with pretty much everybody. Welcome to VRP Rocks again, Carmine Appice.
Hey, thank you, thank you.
No worries.
So,
Thank
I
you.
mean, you gave me five albums. It was hard to pick five.
It is
You
indeed. I
know,
mean, how many do you think you've played on?
I don't even know. I mean, when I do like one track, like Paul Stanley, Pink Floyd, or Eric Carmen, or Ronnie Wood, I don't even think of those hardly. I mean, I forgot I played on Ronnie Wood. I even played with Jan Ackerman from
Oh,
Focus.
yeah, brilliant.
I never list that. I mean, it was so long ago. And but then we did tribute albums. I mean, it's just I don't know.
Yeah, we'll just say
I never
hundreds.
really counted them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
lots. I mean, I
lots
got
and
old
lots.
gold, platinum regs down there.
I know, showing off.
But
I
there,
love it.
but, but there's a lot of Rod, and there's some Pink Floyd. There's Tommy Bolin. I played on his
Tommy.
album.
Yeah,
But it's hard to pick. But I mean, I think I picked five that are good because they meant a lot to me. Like
yes.
the first one I picked was Vanilla Fudge first album, of course. That was
No,
when I was a kid. I was 19 years old.
yeah, I was going to say we'll kick it off there. Then we'll start with the first one, and we're not going to say this is in any order. It's not like your best to worst. It's just
No,
five albums, and we'll do them in chronological order as well, just to throw any
well,
concept out
they
the
are
window.
actually they are in
Yeah,
order.
that's
Because
it.
the first of anything album is always exciting. You know, so the first Fudge album was the first album we ever did, and it was exciting. But we got the album deal because we played You Keep Me Hanging On every night wherever we played, and people used to stop trying to dance and come to the stage and watch us. So our manager put us in the studio and we did a demo of You Keep Me Hanging On, right? And then on New York radio, it was Scott Muni and Murray the K. They were like the two guys that started underground radio in New York. And they used to put like these contests together, like Vanilla Fudge against the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and we'd win. And they'd put us Vanilla Fudge against this one and that one, and we'd win again. So after winning a bunch of times, Atlantic Records contacted my manager, and said we might want to sign these guys. So they signed us. We were called the Pigeons, right? and they didn't like that name, so we went around, what should we call it? So some girl said, "You're like White Soul, about Vanilla Fudge." And we said, okay. In those days, it was like Strawberry Alarm Clock, and was it one? There's so many, I can't remember some. Iron Butterfly, stupid
Yeah.
names. So why not Vanilla Fudge? So it's a good thing because we did a gig after we changed it to Vanilla Fudge. We did a gig with the Birds and the Seeds. We would have been the Pigeons. Right? Birds and Seeds, and it's like a funny name. Two birds and bird seed. Yeah,
Glad it's stuck.
but we did. You Keep Me Hanging On in a one-take mono.
Wow.
That's why it's never been stereo. It was mono the whole time. And then when we went in and recorded the rest of the album, then you hear stereo. But the stereo was real stereo. The drums on the left, like left center, the bass on the right center, the keyboard on the right center, kind of on the right center. And the voice was down the middle. It was real stereo, and you hear it was like this,
Yep.
And so we did the rest of the album like that, and it became a smash. And we were on the Ed Sullivan Show. The album went up to top 5 or top 4 in Billboard, I think it was. And that was before. That was the first album to ever do that without a hit single.
Oh.
Keep Me Hanging On only came out, went to number 70, and it fell off the charts. The album came out, went to number 200 in Billboard. Next week, 33, and then continued to go up, and without a hit single. But we were on the road supporting it. And then we ended up on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yes.
We were the first band to be on the Ed Sullivan Show without a smash single. And then later on that year in '68, they did release the album, the single. By that time, in those days, you used to do an album every 6 months. Mm-hmm. So we did first album. Then we did the second album, which was a total bomb. It was a ridiculous concept album. We had nothing to do with it. It was Ahmet Ertegun and Shadow Morton, our producer. It was their idea. We were young kids. We didn't know what we were doing. We listened to them. And we heard it. It was, this sucks. And that sort of killed our momentum, you know. But it came out, and because of the first album, it went up to 15. That started slowly moving down. So we went in to rescue ourselves in that album to the third album. You know, the first album was going off the charts. Third album came out, and it went top 20. And the other terrible album was like in the 70s. And then they released You Keep Me Hanging On as a single. That went number 4 and brought everything up again. The first album was top 15 again, you know. And so we had 3 albums and a single on the charts, you know. But the second album killed them. I mean, guys that like Hendrix that were doing what we did, the second album just like the first, they got big. We went like this and then slowly building it. So we never got to that status. And then finally in '69 we broke up because me and Tim wanted to play with Jeff Beck, wanted to play more with guitar. We had the privilege of doing a Coke commercial, Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Yeah, and a guitar player got sick. So we had the same lawyer as Jeff Beck. So they got Jeff Beck to sit in with us. He made $300 for the session. And he was playing with Jeff Beck. And it's on YouTube. Nella Fudge Coke commercials on YouTube. And it was great playing with Jeff. So
I can
one
imagine.
thing I never understood, Mark Stein was our singer.
Yeah.
But me and Tim sang, there was two tracks. Me and Tim sang it. I don't know why, you know?
Well, there you go. Excellent. So that's your first choice. Let's move on to your second album. And as you said, they did, I think it was another 4 records with Vanilla Fudge, and then ended up creating Cactus, didn't you? You and Tim, you joined forces with Jim McCarty and Rusty Day to form Cactus. So tell us about how all that came about. How did you guys transition?
Well, originally, after the Fudge broke up, we were going to play with Jeff Beck. And it was going to be me, Jeff, Tim, and Rod Stewart. And Rod didn't want to work with Jeff for financial reasons, whatever. And they were enemies for years until I helped them get back together in 1980. That's a long time. So when Jeff was going to come over, he had a car accident and he couldn't get here. So he said 18 months. And me and Tim said, well, we just broke up Vanilla Fudge. What are we going to do for 18 months? I already had the name Cactus. We saw it on a drive-in with the Fudge, and big letters, Cactus. I said, that's a great name for a band. So Tim agreed. So when Jeff couldn't make it, we said, well, let's see who else we can get. So we got Jim McCarty. He was at Detroit Wheels. He was like the American Jeff Beck at the time, and no one played like that, you know. And Rusty, then we got Jim. He recommended Rusty Day. So we got Cactus. So we used to rehearse in my manager's rehearsal place in Long Island. We brought everybody in, put them in hotels or whatever, apartments. And then little by little, we came up with these songs. Like Parchment Farm was one of the biggest monster songs on it. I didn't even know it was a blues song. Okay. I was not into the blues. You know, I was into R&B, but not these old black guy blues, you know. And then I thought that was ours. And then when it came out, it said, you know, I forgot who wrote it, who wrote it on there. I said, you mean that's not our song? You know, Can't Judge Your Book, same thing. I thought we wrote it, you know. But we had all these few classic rock things, blues things. And then we made them hard, and Parchment Farm sounded nothing like the original.
No, not at all. Yeah.
And people loved Cactus. You know, it was like an underground band. It did well. I mean, you know, we go to different cities. We came to London, had 3,000 people at the London Palladium. You know, we go to Switzerland. We did great in Switzerland, other countries. You know, all around America, we did 2,000 or 3,000 people everywhere. But it never had that hit giant album or hit giant single. You know, but we went on, and then it just broke up. Tim played bass like nobody else. You know, That's why Billy Sheehan loved him. You know, and he was Billy's mentor, and he did a bass solo like nobody else. And after a while, McCarty got sick of not having just a straight bass player behind his solos, so he wanted to leave. So we did Cactus. We did a tour with the Faces with Rod, and we knew Jim was leaving, so we said, let's go more in the directions of the Faces, you know, which we did. We got a singer, Pete French, who was in Atomic Rooster,
Yes, yeah.
English guy, and we got a new guitar player who was a younger guy, and it was a great band. It was like the Faces. Our first album with them was called Hot and Sweaty, you know, very English, hot and sweaty, mate, you know. And we did one side was live at Puerto Rico, and the other side was in the studio. It was a really good band. And then Jeff asked us to play with him again, and that leads into the next album I liked.
That does, yeah. That's moving into number 3 now, as you said. That's the Beck, Bogart, and Appice album. It's you and Tim again moving on together. This famous duo, the famous backbone of so many bands, which has been incredible over the years. And as you said, you finally did get to join up with Jeff Beck, and Beck, Bogart, and Appice came around.
Yeah, and it happened that when we left, we were playing gigs with Cactus, that new Cactus band, and we were doing 2,000 people, 2,500 people, and more sometimes. So we were playing gigs, and Jeff was on tour with the Jeff Beck group, and he said, I want you and Tim to finally join me, let's play together. So luckily, when he started his thing, we had a couple of weeks off with Cactus. So we would join him as the Jeff Beck group, and I had this guy, Kim Milford, singing. This guy looked like he was blonde. He looked like a go-go girl when he was on stage singing and dancing. He wore white go-go boots. I mean, it was awful. We finally got rid of him. We got Bobby Tench back, And so we had Tim, Max Middleton, me, Jeff, and Bobby. That was good. And then when he took a little break, we went back to Cactus. It was going back and forth. So then finally we left Cactus. We gave it to Dwayne Hitchings and Mike Panera. They had the Son of Cactus, they called it. And we went on to join with Jeff. So the next tour with Jeff in America was in October. This was like in the summer before. It was called the Jeff Beck Group, featuring Jeff, me, and Tim. So we were slowly building it. We didn't want it to come out BBA, We're slowly building towards it, And finally, after that tour, we went into Chess Records, and we did Superstition first because Stevie Wonder wrote it for Jeff. But by the time we did it, he had the demo that was very similar to what he released that he sent to Jeff. And Cozy Powell played on a version that sounded like that. And we got pissed off because he released it and went to #1. So we did our version, which we've been playing. It was like a cover. But the lyrics are a little different. He wrote it for Jeff, So we did that, and that was the big one off of that. And then we wrote other songs, and we did a song called Living Alone, which is kind of like Parchment Farm with more dynamics to it. And Jeff played amazing. And, since we didn't have a singer, we said, well, why don't me and Tim sing, like the Cream, So we took that concept, because in those days, even with Cactus and Vanilla Fudge, it wasn't about the song mostly. It was about, more towards Cactus and EBA, it was more about jamming, It was more about the jam. After the Cream came out with Wheels of Fire, and it was all about 20-minute jamming songs, everybody was going for jamming, So the songs were not important. And you got a couple of verses, get into the jam, and come back to a verse, more jam, And that's the concept we had. It was some singing verses, like Lady had 2 verses, a breakdown, and the jam. Living Alone had 2 verses, a jam, another verse, and out, with a jam. It was always like that. So, and that's how we approached BBA, with Jeff. And when the album came out, me and Tim said, man, the guitar is really low, And Jeff said, yeah, I know, because I wanted to hear more of you and Tim. I said, well, we wanted to hear more of you, So we never did that. And then that album did well. It went to, I don't know, #5 on Billboard or something, went gold and all that. And we went to Japan. It was amazing. The band was like the Beatles over there. We were the second band to play the Budokan. And we sold it out. The Beatles were the first. And they didn't even have any lights. They had big aircraft lights that they used to shine in the air during the war. That was our lighting, And we took our PA system because they didn't have any. They had columns. So we made 50 grand or 60 grand, and it cost us 75 grand to go there. Yeah. So not a good business move, but we did the album and we kicked ass, and we thought we were going to continue, but we didn't, because we tried the second album uh, 2 or 3 times, 2 times in England, and studio out near Jeff's house. That didn't work. And we went to London, CBS London. That didn't work. We had Jimmy Miller and Andy Johns. Andy was all screwed up on drugs at the time. Then we went to San Francisco to try and get Sly to produce us. And forget about that. He was out of drug that. After we waiting a week, we flew all our gear there, 25 grand worth of gear and roadies, and staying in the hotels. And went in the studio. And Sly was out of his mind, smoking smoking crack. I don't know what he was smoking. And he said, Carmine, give me a groove. I gave him a groove. Tim, give me a groove with Carmine. Jeff, play a cool, funky thing. He's walking around, he's bopping around. There was a door open. He walks near the door, walks out the door. We figured he's coming back. Never came back. That was the end of it. So we wasted. So we never did the second album. And finally, we recorded live. The last gigs we ever did was the London Rainbow at the end of January '74. We recorded the songs live that we had on the album, because then it sounded better. We had the audience reaction, and it was good. So that's what just came out on the Beck Bogan Appice live box set. All right. So that was, here it is, how many years later, but that came out for the 50th anniversary of the band. And then Jeff passed away just before it came out.
A shame.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely. So incredible stuff. Let's move on to album 4, and someone you've mentioned a couple of times already. 1977, Footloose and Fancy Free. Your time with Rod Stewart. So why this record?
Yes. Well, it was a choice between that one and Blondes Have More Fun, because there were some tracks on Blondes Have More Fun I really liked, but there's some tracks on that record I really liked. So we did a few songs on there, like Attractive Female Wanted, I think was on that record. It was semi-reggae, but it was really cool. And then Hot Legs, of course, where my drums were featured. Most people thought I wrote that song.
Yeah.
Because the drums were featured so much, And, I just loved Rod's voice. He was like my favorite singer. And at that time, he was by far the best frontman of everybody. The voice, nobody sounded like him. And, he'd run all over the stage, jump all over the stage. And I always loved the fact that his audience was 90% women. That always helped on the road, But just jumping to the other album for a minute, the Sexy album, we said we wanted it to be like Missing You, like the Rolling Stones.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? That's what Rod used to say. I want a song like Missing You. When we did Young Turks, I want more of a new wave kind of song, So we did Missing You kind of song. Sexy sounded great. 3 guitars, kicking ass, same kind of groove, but big. Little by little, Tom Dowd kept putting an orchestra on it. And David Foster, before he was a big shot, was playing keyboard on it, and put all these things on. Linda Lewis, who Linda Lewis was? She's an English singer that was married to Jim Cregan. And he put her like singing really high octaves, So before you know it, the 24 track turned into 2 24 tracks. When you do that, everything shrinks.
Yeah.
So when it came out, we finished it. We said, "Oh man, what happened to that big rock sound we had?" And it came out and went to #1 in like 15 countries. I said, "I guess he was right."
You can't argue with that, really, can you?
Yeah,
Not at all. And then moving on to your 5th choice, and this is one I'm really excited to hear about. Blue Murder, their first album you did with them, 1989. Yeah. I mean, let's just talk about the fact John Sykes, obviously just come out of Whitesnake. Incredible, that album that he did in 1987 and everything else. He'd been in Thin Lizzy.
That was amazing.
It was, yeah. You got Tony Franklin. Sorry,
I was asked to do that album.
Oh, were you?
The Whitesnake album. I had King Cobra, and John and David came up to me at a party and said, "Can you do our next album? We'd love you to do it." And I said, "I got my own snake to deal with. I can't do it." Because in those days, when you signed to a label, especially me, I was signed to the label, not the band. I was signed. I couldn't jump ship because legally I couldn't do it. So I said, well, maybe you should get somebody else, maybe Ainsley or something. So Ainsley did it. And 27 million albums later, I went like, But anyway, But I always loved John's playing. He was on those albums. And I loved Tony's playing when he was on the Firm.
Yeah, I was going to say that
Nobody
Tony
played.
Franklin made up the trio, and he'd been in the Firm with Jimmy Page and,
Yeah, it was
Paul
great. It
Rodgers, and
was
yeah.
awesome. And his bass playing with the fretless, I loved it. So then I heard his new band was being put together with Ray Gillen, Cozy Powell, Tony, and John. I said, man, a freaking Cozy, he gets all the gigs. I used to bust his balls. Like somebody would ask me to join, and I couldn't do it. And they got Cozy, Jeff Beck, Rainbow. Richie asked me to join. I couldn't do it. They got Cozy. So I used to bust his balls and say, we are my professional replacement, We were friends, we'd laugh at it. So then I heard he was playing with this band, Blue Murder. I said, oh, man. And then I heard Cozy left and Ray Gillen left. So I said, oh, man, I want to find out. I went after it. And I said, how am I going to find this? My brother Vinny was with Dio, and they were playing 4 nights at the Odeon. I said, I'm going to go to England. I'm going to find out who manages this thing, and I'm going to get into this band. So I went to England. I found out. I got John Sykes' stepdad, who was part of the new management, which was where I consider we went wrong. We didn't really have a strong management team. So I got his number. I had a little rented car, and he said, yeah, John is here and Tony's here. We're in Blackpool, right? I said, okay, how far is that from London? He said, I don't know, 3 hours, whatever it was. So I remember driving there, and I had one cassette. I had Permanent Vacation by Aerosmith. That's the only music I had. I listened to it the whole way. I got there at 2 or 3 in the morning, and we didn't really have cell phones then, It was like, so Tony was going to meet me. He waited up at the hotel to meet me. And I met him, and the first thing we did was broke into the bar, have a drink. I wasn't really a drinker, but I had a drink with him. Then the next day we went into the studio that the stepdad had in the house where John used to live. And I get there, and there's Cozy's drums in there, right? So we said, okay. So we went out to music store, came back, we smoked a little hash, and then we went and played, and we played. It was like magic. It just fit together. And I remember John saying, man, you got so many drum fills. He said, Cozy had 3 or 4. He did them all the time. He said, you got so many. Because I'm a study drummer, I'm like, I just comes out whatever I feel, at the time. And Tony loved it too. So the next thing, well, you're in if you want it. I go, let's go. So that was it. So I joined the band. And then we looked for singers, like forever. We went through all these singers in LA, and John was hanging out in LA, and I had this house in Northridge, and eventually he bought the house like 2 blocks away, so we could always connect. And Tony, he brought Tony over. We had Nick Green as a keyboard player. We used to call it the trio with depth. Nick passed away now, and it was just amazing, So we decided, me and Tony said, why don't we be a trio? You sing, you got the deal on your voice, and we'll back you up on, background vocals and playing. So that's what we did. So we went up to Vancouver with Bob Rock, the first thing he ever produced. And we did all the tracks, and then we came back. We were looking for singers, and he did that Dr. Feelgood album. Yeah. So I think he used a lot of my drum sound that we developed up there, because I had all these different bass drums and all these old bass drums. He was sampling everything. Matter of fact, I did the whole album once, and then we got such a great drum sound. Bob said, you want to do it again? I said, yeah, let's do it again, because we did everything to a click. They laid down the bass and guitar and the vocal, and then I went in and did all the drums, and then they put everything on top of me. And one night, I do remember, if you got time, we did Jelly Roll, right? Which became the single. We used to go to strip bars and get pissed and smoke, come out. I came back to the studio with all these strippers and shit, nothing was going on but partying at the time, and guys and girls, and it was this big party. And I was like, I wasn't straight, let's put it that way. So John said, go on, Calm. We'll put the drums on Jelly Roll. I go, nah, man, I'm too fucked up, Just good. I said, all right. So I went in and I played it. I said, I'll do it again tomorrow. Next day I come in, I listen to it, I said, wow, that sounds great. So we kept it. That was a funny thing because, we used to party every night. We'd come back with, all the roadies and people we met there, guys, girls, just party in the studio, and then play them some tracks, see what they thought about it, that kind of thing. But it was a great record. And we went so much over budget. It was ridiculous. And it came out, I would have bet anybody my house because we had Geffen, John Kalodner, Bob Rock producer, me, Tony, and John, Geffen Records. The only thing we didn't have was the right managers. And in those days, you needed it, to control the band, to control the record company. And we didn't have it. So we released the first song, and we pushed them to make Valley of the Kings on MTV, pushed them. It was the wrong song to push. Jelly Roll should have been the song, but we didn't do that. And kind of mess, and nothing ever happened. When it sold 250,000, when we even did 8 shows with Bon Jovi, and we were jamming like BB-8, and the people were digging it. Women, girls, the Bon Jovi fans, and it just didn't happen. Then we went to Japan. We were huge in Japan.
Yeah.
We did. Burn Magazine had a thing, the greatest trios all time is Jimi Hendrix, Cream, BB-8, and Blue Murder. I said, well, how about this? I'm in 2 of those, And Blue Murder was huge. We did 12,000 people in Tokyo, and the album went gold and platinum, whatever. I never got one, but I know it did. And then we came back, and then when we came back, everybody was bummed out, and we weren't working, doing anything. I wasn't on a salary, so I started working with Vanilla Fudge, and John didn't like that. He said, you got to just be in one band. I said, look, dude, I got to make money. I got a wife and 2 kids. I can't just sit around here, So we kind of split ways, and then when they started doing the second album, they couldn't get it with the guys they had, so they called me and Tony because he left too, and we did the second album as session guys. Mm-hmm. We even tried to get Blue Murder together lately, it just didn't work, So now John, which is unbelievable, nobody knows what he's doing. I don't think he's in the business, so he doesn't like the way the business runs. I may be wrong. That's what somebody told me. And I would get it because, he doesn't answer emails or texts. Every once in a while, maybe. I texted him about 3-4 months ago. I haven't heard from him in 2 years. And I said, are you okay? He said, yeah, I'm good. He said, I'm good. How you doing? I said, good. Okay, man, I just wanted to check up on you. He said, thank you, mate. And that was it.
Well, wonderful. I've loved hearing your stories. 5 incredible records, and as you said, from hundreds to choose from. It's not easy, but we've enjoyed this trip down memory lane and hearing your stories from your career. So thank you so much for your time, Carmine.
Thank you, mate. Let's do it again.
Indeed.
Pick the next 5.